This is OFN NFL Preview for Week 16. That's right, just 2 more weeks to go before the end of the regular season. Then the playoffs kick off. And before you know it, we'll be off to the Super Bowl in Tampa Bay and then the offseason. So I know as a Jet fan, I can't wait for the offseason. That's when as a Jet fan, it becomes your Super Bowl. But hopefully 1 in 15 seasons will be a thing of the past, even though it sure looks like it will be without Trevor Lawrence. But that's life as a Jet fan. That's for another show. Let's try to be optimistic here as we have a lot of key games to talk about, as always, and the playoffs for 14 teams this season mark, which is pretty cool to have that extra team. And I wonder whether or not the NFL is going to decide, well, let's just go with 14 teams every year.
I think they're going to do just that, Greg. I think it's going to be met with a lot of rounding approval by the fans. And just before we hop into these games, let me just make one comment here about the Jets losing last week.
Yes, winning or losing Lawrence, yes.
Well, fans think that they lost because they won.
Yes.
But, the truth of the matter is the professional athlete does not step out on the field to lose games. No, that's not at all in the mind of the players to tank. No. That all comes from the sports writers and gives the fans fodder to talk about. The New York Jets had no intention of trying to tank and lay down. We saw that with Frank Gore's comments about a month earlier that he didn't want to end his career on an 0-16 football team. You saw how he played his heart out in that game to avoid just that.
Yep.
That's one side of the conversation. The other side of the conversation is, as you said, being a Jets fan, how you look forward to the offseason. Well, I'm sure a lot of Jets fans out there are really looking forward to the offseason this year.
Well, absolutely. And again, I was saying I did my Jets show earlier for the week, and I tried to convey to Jet fans what I have conveyed really for the last actually couple of weeks is, look, it's going to be great if the franchise can get Trevor Lawrence, but it's out of your hands. It's out of my hands. And I just have to trust that Joe Douglas, with or without Trevor Lawrence, is going to get it done because that's who I do trust. I really like Joe Douglas. I think he's going to turn this franchise around. It's going to take a few years. You got to build through the draft. That's exactly the type of guy he is. He's already done a great job by adding his left tackle of the future in Becton. He looks like he's got a keeper in Denzel Mims. And he's got a boatload of draft picks, 6 in the top 100 this year. He's got more even next year. Just because Trevor Lawrence may not be on the team doesn't mean you still can't find a franchise quarterback who isn't named Trevor Lawrence. It's just going to be harder, but it could happen. And I am getting excited as a fan to know that it's just another few weeks, another couple of months. The juices start to flow when you realize that you're about to rebuild your team and bring in better players and draft better players. I think it's a lot of fun, and I think the fans should enjoy the ride. But Jet fans, they're just so cynical, they're so negative, and I'm the exact opposite. So that's why I always get a lot of, I'm always battling these Jet fans, on Twitter and so forth, or on the message boards. I try to say positive things, not just to say, I don't just say positive things to say positive things. I try to bring certain perspective to what I see, because for their perspective, everything's always negative. Always.
Well, it is. And, it's because they feel they have a license to gripe and complain. I'm sure that even in the Jets' good years, when Rex Ryan took them to the playoffs, there was still people whining, crying, and
probably
complaining.
Yeah.
And it wasn't enough. So,
no. I know that's what I try to remind them of. Look, the team went. Yeah, this is the roughest stretch in franchise history. But if you take it out, before that, it wasn't that long ago where you had back-to-back championship games. You had the Parcells championship game. You've had some good winning seasons. You even came close to the championship game once with Joe Walton, and also went to the championship game with Walt Michaels. And won a Super Bowl. there's a good number of franchises who have never won a Super Bowl before. They don't have a legacy. The Jets, at least there's a legacy. Yes, they're sick of Joe Namath, but hey, you have a legacy. You have Joe Namath. That's nothing to. There's nothing to feel sorry about. And if you ask Atlanta Falcon fans how they feel, or Cincinnati Bengal fans, there's a lot of teams out there that have not won Super Bowls that have legacies that they can't lean on. At least Jet fans do, but they don't want to look at it that way.
Well, we live in a here and now world, where people don't want to wait or build for the future. They want it here, they want it now. So, that's where all the main majority of complainers come from, the here and the nows. But you have to learn to cast that aside and move forward with some positive thinking. And I'm glad you're a positive thinker. And
it doesn't help when you're in New York. I'm not in New York. I haven't been there in a long time. It helps. It's not easy when you have to deal constantly with the negative media. It's
for sure.
Negative. And it's so and then they kind of respect that media. And then you have Jet fans part of the media. And when you're following those members of the media that are fans and are negative all the time, then if you like those members of the media, then you tend to believe what they say, think the way they think. And it's a trickle down to thousands and thousands of other fans in the community. And I can see why that happens. And that's why I'm glad I don't live in the area, just for that reason.
Well, be thankful you live where you do and you're not in amongst those people, because you may get sucked into that. So yes. I'm not from there either, never have been, never will be. So I have my own trials and tribulations with my Cleveland Browns.
That's right. And that's about to end.
You're talking to the choir.
That's right. There you go. Yes, there's a great history with championships, but no Super Bowls.
Correct.
No playoff appearances since 2002. So Mark Lawrence and the Cleveland Browns fans, the brigade of fans, they don't want to hear Jet fans complaining.
No,
not at all. And we'll get into the Browns a little bit. Actually, you know what? That wasn't one of our top games, and we were talking a little. Look, Jets Browns. Might as well just throw it in there, because the Jets are coming off their win. So you wonder, okay, will they kind of have that week where they kind of just, all right, we got our win and we'll recharge our batteries against the Patriots. Browns, meanwhile, can't clinch with just a win. They're going to need some help as well. But what's interesting is, and I'm not sure a lot of people who haven't been paying close attention don't realize, that the Browns actually have a decent chance to win the division.
Yes, they do.
Because the way the Steelers are playing, if they lose to the Colts, which I think they're going to, if they lose to the Colts the way they're playing, and the Browns beat the Jets, which they should, then you've got a Cleveland-Pittsburgh matchup in Week 17 that decides the division title. So how about that?
Yeah, that would be something else to see the Browns and the Buffalo Bills each win their division title.
Yeah, so Browns, what are they, a 9.5-point favorite in that game?
Yeah, and it'll be 10 points. It'll be 10 when they play on Sunday, right?
All right. Let's get to the games on Friday and Saturday first. Friday, New Orleans, Drew Brees comes back. And not surprising, he was sluggish early. Picked things up a little bit after that. Did throw 3 touchdown passes. But let's keep in mind, no Michael Thomas. And that's a big loss, because that's Drew Brees. That's his man. I think the Saints can run their offense better with their backup quarterbacks without Michael Thomas. But Brees kind of needs Michael Thomas. That's his guy. He's still a great quarterback. He's still the man. He still should be the number one guy until he retires, probably in about a month or so. They're a 7-point favorite against the Vikings in this one. The Vikings have dropped 5 straight covers. Saints have dropped 2 straight. It's a playoff rematch. Let's not forget last year. This is when Kirk Cousins finally got the playoff monkey off his back, and the Vikings beat the Saints, and then they went on to get pretty much beat up by the Niners the week after that. So, there's a little revenge here for the Saints, and considering they've lost 2 straight, they really want this one, no question. But I just don't know what to expect from the Vikings from week to week.
No, you don't. This is a football team that really has, if you will, Mike Zimmer scratching his head. All of those fantastic numbers we talked about him before in non-conference games are watering down with each passing game. They're simply not playing good football on the field. They're getting pushed around in the stats and dangerously close to not making the playoffs this year. I think what works for New Orleans is this game. In this game is what you mentioned, revenge from the wild card home playoff loss to the Vikings last year. You couple that with New Orleans being at home off a home loss, that gives the Saints plenty of incentive in this football game, and I believe they'll take advantage of it.
All right, the Saints right now, the number 2 seed in the NFC, so they're tied with Seattle, and they're just a game back of the Packers, but the Packers beat the Saints, so I don't see the Saints passing the Packers, but you never know. I mean, the Packers have a couple of tough games to wrap up their season, so there still is a shot for that number 1 that bye week, which I'm sure Drew Brees would love to have. So I wouldn't throw that out either. All right. Oh, by the way, first Friday NFL game since 2009. It's been a long time, and we'll see how that goes. I'm glad that they have Christmas games this season. 3 of them actually are going to take place after Christmas, but the Minnesota New Orleans Christmas Friday game. Not only do we not have Friday games very often, but we don't have Christmas games very often. I hope this is the beginning that the NFL decides, you know what, maybe it would be okay if we had at least one Christmas game every year, as long as the schedule, worked out, between Thursdays and Mondays.
Well, the NBA got wise, and they do just that. Christmas Day means the NBA is what it means, and that's one reason they started their schedule this year just a little bit in advance of Christmas Day, and I think the NFL would serve themselves well to do just that, as you mentioned.
Let's go to Saturday, and there's 3 games, really only one good one, but we'll start with the Tampa-Detroit game. When I heard Detroit was getting a sort of like a holiday game, I was like, come on. I mean, don't they have enough Thanksgiving Day games every year? We have to see the Detroit Lions on another holiday-type game, especially the way things are going. But it's about getting Tom Brady on TV. That's what it's about. It's not about the Lions. And the Bucs right now are sitting as the 6th seed. So there's still some work to do for the Bucs. And they were sluggish early last week, came on, and after they trailed 24-7, you had to figure the Falcons were having Tom Brady Super Bowl flashbacks with that 17-point lead in the second half. But that sort of epitomized the kind of season the Bucs have had this year. That game last week, you don't know what they're going to do from half to half and week to week. So, but they got the win. 9.5 is a big number. I know Detroit's not a very good football team. They gave up a ton of points last week, but they have been playing freer, looser. They've been feeling good about themselves since Matt Patricia's been gone. Darrell Bevel's kind of loosened the strings, and it's a big number. I don't know. I don't feel comfortable giving up a lot of points for Tampa Bay, especially if you take a look at the trend that I think might be the biggest impact. They're 1-8 against the spread in their last 9 in the second of back-to-back road games, including 0-1 this year.
Yeah, this football team just cannot put a consistent effort together from week to week to week. And you're talking about a football team that also gets out notoriously slow out of the gate. If they were a racehorse, they'd be back in the gate for gate training. They've been outscored by 32 points in the first quarter this year, and they have to rely on comebacks from that point thereafter. That doesn't always continuously work in the National Football League. They can't afford to do that, nor can they afford to play down to the level of the Detroit Lions this week. The Lions have owned this football team in the series. They've won 10 of the 12 games against the spread the last 12 times they've met. Detroit has played really well in games on Saturdays, 8-2 to the spread, whereas New Orleans has laid an egg on Saturdays, 0-6-1 to the spread. I'm not a big Tampa Bay fan. I'm a big Bruce Arians fan. I just don't like the football team being priced the way they are because of an antique quarterback who refuses to give up. I'm going to play the Detroit Lions plus the points in this game and see if this doesn't come down to the final wire.
Yeah, what do you think about Detroit in this spot, even with the money line? And maybe next week would be a good one because it could be Stafford's last home game. Very possible, even though there's nobody in the stands, but it could be. Stafford's, look, as long as he's out there, we know that they have a chance to pull off an upset. We've seen him do it the last few years. They're not a very good football team, but they can come up every once in a while at home with Stafford, put big game, big effort together, and surprise you And considering Tampa Bay is so unpredictable, and you're getting over 3-1 on the money line here, I mean, I think it's worth throwing a couple of bucks on Detroit on the money line.
Well, if it was worth a couple of bucks to throw it on the Jets last week, or if it was worth it to throw it on the Bengals last week, it certainly would be with the Lions in this game. And just a little sidebar note, when I was doing a show, they asked me if I ever had contemplated playing a money line parlay with the Jets and the Bengals last week, and my answer was, had I done that, I would be the lead speaker at a Gamblers Anonymous meeting.
Yeah, right.
Yeah,
that would have been that would have been the one out of 1,564 such parlays that you hit.
But I do have a friend, or I know of a friend who knows somebody that does play the two longest money line dogs every week in a two-team money line parlay. And what he did, if he did that last week, is he won a lottery ticket. Is what he did.
Absolutely.
Yep. You're not going to win a lottery ticket with the Lions in the money line here. But you're going to end up ensuring yourself of a pretty good week if you do just that. And I would absolutely have to play Detroit on a money line, especially if you like them in this football game plus the points.
Okay, yeah, because if we look at it overall, once again, as usual, when you win, you cover. Let's see, over the last, we look at it, matter of fact, not only week 2 of the season have there not been double-digit winning records for teams that win and cover. That was 9-7. That's as bad as it gets when you win. So there were a lot of teams that struggled to win and cover in week 2. But other than that, it's 173, 47, and 4. If you win, you cover. So, but again, the trick is to make sure you find the teams that win and cover. It's not so easy, but the point is, if you like a team to win, chances are they're going to cover. That's just, those are the percentages. And that's why if you like Detroit, why not? Go ahead and throw a couple bucks on the money line as well.
Well, obviously, the teams that don't cover are the favorites. And, those are the ones that you have to try to avoid. What favorite looks like they could possibly struggle, win the game, and not get the money? So that's the second question you have to ask yourself when you're looking for finding a team. If they win the game, they'll cover the spread.
Okay, now the middle game on Saturday is San Francisco and Arizona. Arizona's a 5-point favorite. I actually thought this was going to be a 7-point spread. I just don't like the way San Francisco's going right now. We kind of touched up on that last week, and it continued. They are just worn down, and you could imagine why. This is, again, another Super Bowl losing team with the hangover. Whatever excuse you want to throw at them, it's just a fact. And unless you're New England, if you lose a Super Bowl, you're just going to have a bad year. And injuries, whatever the case, things have just. And now the whole COVID thing has San Francisco actually playing home games in Arizona for the time being, but they're just not playing well. They've lost their last 3 games between 8 and 10 points in each game, straight up and against the spread. And they're taking on an Arizona team that owns the 49ers. Arizona has beaten San Francisco 10 of 13. So, and not just, and there was a spell, of course, where Bruce Arians was in Arizona and San Francisco they were going through hard times, but it doesn't seem to matter whether it's good times or bad times. Arizona has played them strong. They beat them week 1 by 4 points as a 6-point dog in San Francisco. They are 5-0-1 against the spread in their last 6 versus the 49ers. And it's only 5 points. And the topping is, and I'll continue to say this because this is a good, if anytime you want to talk about coaches and what they have is their quarterback, how much talent they have at quarterback, does that separate them from good coaches to bad coaches and how good your quarterback is? Kyle Shanahan, without Jimmy Garoppolo, has won 6 games out of 32 since he's been with the Niners. That is awful. So if you think about it, yes, they almost won the Super Bowl last year. But if you take the Super Bowl year out, a couple years before that, this year, they have been awful because they haven't had a healthy quarterback.
Well, that's the other side of the axiom about picking a team to win the game and cover the spread. The shortcut Cliff Notes version of handicapping is pick the better quarterback in a matchup and bet on his team because they know how to win football games, and the other quarterback likely doesn't. That's been the case with San Francisco without Jimmy Garoppolo. Now, I'm not a huge Jimmy Garoppolo fan by any means, but backup quarterbacks generally do not win or cover games in the National Football League. That's unfortunately the situation San Francisco's in this contest. Kyler Murray's doing a nice job with Arizona. It looks like he's healthy once again. Yep. But I'm going to throw a couple of red flags at you here. Number one, you've got a home favorite on a Saturday football game in the regular season. Those teams have not done well when they're taking on an opponent that comes off a straight-up favorite loss like San Francisco did. They're just 9-22 against the spread going all the way back to 1980. Arizona is also terrible in their final home game of the season. The last 7 years, 1 win, 6 losses, both straight up and against the spread. So now what you've got here in San Francisco is a team that's coming in here on a 3-game straight-up and ATS losing streak who lost their last game as a favorite. In fact, all 3 of those losses were as a favorite, and now they're dressing up as an underdog. I can't back Arizona in a situation like that. There's just too much value to San Francisco because of everything I mentioned.
And this is such a huge game for Arizona. The pressure is going to be on them. The young quarterback hasn't been through this before. A lot of young players haven't been through this before. Coach hasn't been through this before. You have the Chicago Bears now on their heels, red hot, feeling good about themselves. And Arizona can't lose, because if Arizona loses one of their last 2 games and Chicago wins their next 2 games, the Bears are going to the playoffs, not Arizona. So this is a really big one, because it is possible that when the Rams play Arizona next week, that the Rams might not be playing for anything. Possible. Not likely, but possible. But if that were to be the case, that would be a big break for Arizona. But this is the one Arizona has to win. You just can't lose to San Francisco. If you lose to San Francisco, you know what? I think they won't make the playoffs.
Well, if you lose to San Francisco in the condition San Francisco's in, you don't deserve to be in the playoffs. So no excuses. You know, if you're Arizona, you have to go out and win this football game. If you don't, case closed.
Okay, and then the best game of the night is Miami and Las Vegas. Would have been a lot better had Vegas played better recently. Just 1-4 straight up ATS last 5. Wins over, losses to the Chargers, to Atlanta, and a win in the last second against the winless Jets. That's their win in the last 5 games. They are not playing well. Marcus Mariota has taken over a quarterback with Derek Carr's injury. And on the flip side, you got the Dolphins winning 8 out of 10, covering 9 out of 10. Same thing, though. You got the Dolphins, a young quarterback, a young team, the pressure. How are they going to handle that? The nation's going to be watching them. Huge game. There's a good chance that the Buffalo Bills might rest their starters week 17. So but Miami also, like Arizona, can't lose, because if they lose, that opens the door for the Baltimore Ravens.
Well, here's my scientific theory in this football game, Greg. You talked about the Miami Dolphins being on this nice red-hot winning run, the Las Vegas Raiders being on this ice-cold winning run. And what happens in science when you take hot and cold and put them together? Then they both become warm. Hot comes down and cold raises its temperature. You've got value here in this football game with Vegas in this hot-cold matchup. You've got Vegas still alive in the AFC playoff race, and you've got Miami hanging by the threads in that race. What works against Miami the most in this contest is the fact that they beat New England and stuffed them, denied them a winning season last week at home. The last 9 times they played New England on the road, they're 0-9 straight up and against the spread. I think this is a wake-up call game for Vegas. I think Miami comes up flat here. I like Vegas in the mild upset in this football game.
All right, now let's get to the Sunday games, and we are going to start, first of all, with I guess you could say this is the best game of the day, and that is Indianapolis at Pittsburgh. The question is going to be how might be record-wise the best game, best matchup, but the way Pittsburgh's been playing lately, I'm not sure many people want to watch them play again, because they've been playing a lot on prime time and they just haven't looked good. There's something psychologically wrong with this team right now. Ben Roethlisberger needs all the help he can get at his age, and he just hasn't been getting it. They don't run the football. The receivers drop passes. The defense, they lost Dupree, and that's hurt them, no question. They're still a much better defensive team than they are an offensive team right now. They take on this Indianapolis Colts team that has won and covered 5 straight this season as a road favorite. They've also won 5 out of 6 overall. It's a 1-point spread right now. I'm going to be intrigued to see if it changes, if it flips at all on Sunday, on game day. We know how the Steelers are a better team when they're a dog, but nothing's really been working for the Steelers. They were a dog against Buffalo. It didn't matter. It doesn't matter. They're just not playing well. I'm going with the Colts.
Well, you can mark this down. Pittsburgh will be the favorite in this football game come Monday. They'll go to the 1 or 1.5 or 2-point favorite. The Sharps in Vegas are not going to let Pittsburgh go off as a home dog in this football game, okay? For a couple of reasons, okay? We all know the Pittsburgh numbers. They've lost 4 in a row, only 4 times under Mike Tomlin, and in those follow-up games, every score has been by 1 score or less. Roethlisberger is 8-2-1 to the spread as a home dog. Pittsburgh is 6-0-1 to the spread the last 7 against the AFC South. You can go on and on and on about Pittsburgh and their dog numbers. The Colts, this is the key in the contest, the Colts are not playing good football right now. They have been out-yarded in 3 of their last 4 football games. They've allowed 300 or more passing yards in 4 of their last 5 games. When you look at their last 3 games, they've allowed 425, 424, and 398 total yards in those football games. At the midway point of the season, we talked about the Colts being the number 1 ranked defense in the National Football League. They are now the number 7 ranked defense in the National Football League because they're bottoming out defensively. They've gone up against the AFC North the last 5 times and lost the money all 5 times. If Pittsburgh remains the underdog in this game, this will be their wake-up game. You can mark that down. I like Pittsburgh to upend Indianapolis here.
Yeah, what I do like about what the Colts have been doing is I like the fact that Jonathan Taylor has taken over the reins as the true number 1 running back because that's what they've needed. They have to take the pressure off of Phillip Rivers. Phillip Rivers just can't throw the ball a lot statistically in the postseason or these next couple of games if they stand a chance. We'll see. Look, if the Colts their defense can't come up big against the Steelers the way their offense is going, then that's a bad sign the rest of the way for the Colts. All right. Meanwhile, you have let's go out west for the big NFC West matchup between the Rams and Seattle. And the Rams are going to have to pick up their bootstraps after losing to a winless team as a 17-point home favorite. They go on the road. They're a 1-point dog. But they have owned Seattle over the last few seasons. Not only did they beat Seattle by 7 on the 15th of November as a 2-point favorite at home, but they have now beaten Seattle 5 out of 6 overall. Interesting, Seattle beat LA last year in Seattle as a 1.5-point favorite by 1 point. So you never know. Just because that's why whether it's buying half a point or when you get that when you do get that low, I think it still all depends on what the money line is. Sometimes you get the money line at minus 135, minus 130. Sometimes you get it at minus 145, minus 150. If I can get minus 135 on the money line or give up minus 1.5, minus 110, I kind of get tempted to side with the minus 135, but I wouldn't go much further than that.
Well, now we're talking about the league's number 1 ranked defense in the LA Rams, who come in here red-faced embarrassed off that loss against the Jets. They trail Seattle in the NFC West now. The winner of this game controls their division destiny.
Right.
And I'm going to say this, that teams who come in off of a loss after being favored by 14 or more points in that game are 7-3 against the spread in the very next game. There's only been 1 team in my database since 1980 that lost straight up as a favorite of 17 or more points. That was in 2001 when the Raiders did just that, and they came back as a dog the next game and won and covered. In Seattle, you got a football team here that has the number 26th ranked defense in the league. They've been miserable in their last home game of the season the past 5 years. They've lost the money all 5 times, winning only 1 game straight up on the scoreboard. I think the better team is the Rams here, and so too does Vegas. That's why they're installed only as a 1.5-point dog in this contest. I'll play the Rams to bounce back off that red-faced, embarrassed loss last week.
Yeah, if this was just like week 8, week 10, that kind of thing, I'd probably think differently about it. But Seattle was my pick before the season began in this conference, and even though the trends definitely side with the Rams in this one, me personally, I'm gonna go with Seattle in this one, and that is because I still believe that they have the talent to win the NFC. The defense has been playing better. That's important. It's not great. There's flaws, no question, but they've played better. Adams is healthier. They've added Dunlop and so forth. So the defense is better. Now the running game is becoming a big part of their offense as well. Now they're getting balance. Not only is Carson healthy, Penny is now back in health. So all of this, I think, is working at the right time. It's going to be a lot harder to make the run if you don't win this game. So I, as much as we both liked the Rams in the preseason when they were ridiculously labeled at 66-1 to win the Super Bowl, and we loved them as far as as one of our big future plays, one of our bargain future plays. I still think Seattle's a better overall team, so I'll stick with Seattle in this one. Okay, you want to add something?
Greg, real quick before we get out of this game here. I'm going to have to report you to ASCAP, and that's because you're kicking the Rams while they're down. You're stomping and kicking on the Rams while they're down. Just a little word of warning. That's all I'm going to say.
Okay. Now, Akers is not playing in this game, and I don't think that's going to matter much. That's the one thing I don't understand. I tell you right now, if I'm a team looking for a young running back, and I know I only have to give up like a 5th or a 6th round draft pick, because that's all you'd have to give up, I'm calling the Rams and I'm asking them for Henderson. Henderson's a nice young running back.
Kid from Memphis.
For some reason, McVay is just in love with Akers. And yeah, I know he ran for 374 or something like that in 3 games, but I'm sorry, I just don't think that Henderson would have done much less. You actually gave Akers an opportunity to run the ball, made him the workhorse. You have not given Henderson the opportunity to be a workhorse since early in the season, when he produced for the Rams as a workhorse. So I don't understand why he's not. He's statistically, Henderson is a good blocker as a running back. So that can't be the reason. He's good when as far as he's hard to bring down. I think that if a team wants to give him the ball 20 times a game and make him a number 1, I think he'd be a better running back for it. So if I'm a team looking for a running back, if the Rams, for whatever reason, would rather Akers is our number 1 and Henderson will always be our number 2. Hey, if I need a number 1 running back, I'll call the Rams and I'll take Henderson off their roster for them. And also, McVay deserves Akers to be out this week. What a stupid ass move. Akers gets hurt against the Jets in his first or second possession. We see him on the sidelines limping around. Obviously, the dude goes into the locker room and gets his cortisone shot. He gets his drugs in his system so he can't feel the pain. For whatever ridiculous reason, McVay, against a winless football team, doesn't trust Henderson. He's got to bring Akers back into the football game. You still lose the game, and now Akers has a high ankle sprain because now the drugs have worn off, and he can't play this week. I mean, seriously, do you need to push Akers in a game against the Jets that forces him to miss the biggest game of the year this week?
Well, there's one simple reason that he sticks with Cam Akers, okay? And it's because it's in his DNA, in McVay's DNA. We saw it in the Super Bowl when he did not play Todd Gurley in that football game. When he settles on a running back as his number 1 running back, he's going to play him come hell or high water. And he only goes to the backup quarterback out of need or out of necessity. That's the case here this year with Akers against Henderson. We saw it in the Super Bowl year when Todd Gurley rode the pine throughout most of the Super Bowl game. So I understand what his thinking is. I'm not saying I agree with it. I don't necessarily think it's right. But you know something? This could end up being a coming out party for Henderson here because, like you say, he is a very talented running back, and this could be his opportunity that he's been sitting long and waiting for.
And take advantage of his opportunity so some other team can sign him. Absolutely. Or trade for him, of course. All right, Philadelphia and Dallas. The Cowboys have now won 2 straight to get back into contention in the NFC East. They're in second place behind the Redskins. They did not play the Redskins, and they have lost to the Redskins twice. So they are still in rough shape. They're going to need the Redskins to lose 2 straight to end the season, or it would be 3 straight. And then the Cowboys have to win 4 straight to end the season. I don't see that happening. But I was kind of surprised the Eagles were the 2-point favorite in this game. You know, when I first looked at this game, I thought it would be Dallas 2, Dallas 3. I know the Eagles and Hurts and they're moving the ball better and all that. But they've won one game in the last 2 months, the Eagles. And I know this is an NFC East matchup. These teams aren't very good. I look, the Eagles are in a favored role. That's not good. The Eagles are a bad favorite team. They have covered once as a favorite this year. That was against the Cowboys when DiNucci was the quarterback in that primetime game, and they barely covered that game. So I'm actually going with the Cowboys in this one, even though I do think the Eagles are maybe a better team right now. It's by 51-49%. And that's why Dallas has actually been a good home dog over the last several seasons, and including 2-0 against the spread this season. So I think they make it 3-0.
Well, what's perplexing to me, Greg, is that the Philadelphia Eagles are not playing good football themselves. They're wobbling. They're 1-5 straight up with only 1 point spread cover since their bye week, and they've only won the yards in 1 of their last 7 football games. They're 1-6 straight up into the number in their 7 road games. Yeah. They've done nothing to warrant being the favorite in this football game. It's an anti-Dallas play, and I think it's also Vegas warming up to Jalen Hurts, feeling like he is going to end up giving them the impetus they need to make a charge at that NFC East title. But remember, Dallas is also in that NFC chase as well. Now they're coming up the home underdog here, and I think the key in the contest is Andy Dalton, who is at his best in the month of December against losing teams. He's 13-4 straight up, 12-4-1 to the spread. That's the role he'll be in here against the Eagles on Sunday. I like Dallas with their double revenge against Philadelphia in this game.
And here's another one. We all know, because we've talked about it several times this season, how good the Patriots have been as a home dog. And they're a home dog, obviously, in this one, getting 7 on a Monday night.
Well, 10-1 their last 11 as a home dog, but I think the key factor in this game is 2 things. Number one, Buffalo just clinched the AFC East for the first time since 1995. Yes. And number 2, if Bill Belichick wins his football game, he will not end up the season with the losing record because he has the New York Jets up next week. A win here and a win against the Jets pulls him at 8-8, and you can believe it. Bill Belichick is very well aware of that. He does not want to go into the offseason knowing he had a losing season. What you've also got in this contest here is this Buffalo's on this high-scoring run here of late. And sooner or later, all these points that you put up in football games almost always brings you back to the norm, especially in letdown spots. And I wouldn't be surprised if normally, as we do see in the National Football League, on the final week of the season, teams that are in the playoffs oftentimes rest their regulars. I think that trend may go back to this week when teams that have clinched playoff spots will rest their regulars and then use week 16 as the dress rehearsal game because Buffalo will not have a bye week. There's obviously only 2 teams that will have bye weeks. And I think these teams will take a different approach to the playoffs in that sense. So if they've got nothing to lose, they can't go up, they can't go down, why play the regulars this week when they and rest them next week when they can rest them this week and then play them next week and go into the playoffs with momentum?
Yeah, I guess that'll be interesting to see. I mean, but look, there's enough trends as well that make this that much juicier. I just gave you the 114 one, and we talked, look, the Patriots 10-1 against the spread, last 11 as a home dog. They're 2-0 straight up and against the spread as a home dog this year. So they've won both of them this year. It's not just Tom Brady, Cam Newton or the Patriots. The team itself has won. They've won both of their games as a home dog this year. And you hit it with the Bills have won their division title for the first time since 95. Since 95, right? It's been that long, or is it 2005?
Yes, 95. Yeah.
That's even longer. So they have got to celebrate and kind of, again, like you said, they've won 4 straight, they've covered 6 straight, but eventually those streaks do come to an end, and this would feel like that kind of time where it could come to an end, where they just, it's the Patriots and so forth, and they don't want, but the Patriots aren't in the playoffs. They're not. This game doesn't mean anything for the Patriots. It doesn't mean anything really for the Bills, except possibly, of course, you get down after the first round. Maybe you need to ensure that you get the home game, but does home really matter, except that you just don't want to travel? There's not going to be any fans in the stands, whether you have to travel to Pittsburgh or stay at home and take on Pittsburgh at home. So, yeah, I think this is a real good spot to take the Patriots. And remember, it's a Monday game, so it's the last game of the week in the NFL. The Patriots are also nearly a 3-1 dog on the money line. So, and we've talked about this, if you really like these teams on Monday, what to do. But this is even a better week because it's also kind of like the beginning of a week with all the bowl games and such. So this would not be a bad idea if you want to look at it. If you're thinking, hey, I kind of like the Patriots in the money line, maybe you begin like a parlay if you want, like a 2-team parlay, Patriots money line, and then take like a college football bowl game that you really like. This way, the money line works out perfectly for you, depending on exactly which way you want to go with your college football game.
Well, I'm going to play Tom Cruise and just simply look at New England in this football game. I'm going to use the show me the money theory in this football contest here. And the money has been Bill Belichick at home with same season division revenge. He's 16-0 straight up and 15-1 to the spread his last 16 times.
16-0 straight up.
And 15-1 to the spread. That shows me the money.
All right. And on Sunday, we skipped over that. This is one of the best games of the week. Tennessee and Green Bay. A couple of things that are important here when I make my decision here to take Tennessee. And that is the Green Bay Packers might be one of the more overrated teams in the NFL. It's all Aaron Rodgers for the Packers. That's what it is. Look, I like Aaron Jones, Devontae Adams. It's they got that 3-man, 3-player deal that any team would covet when you have a great quarterback, great receiver, great running back. But they got some good pass rushers. But outside of that, there are weaknesses here and there. There's some good players here and there. But I don't think they are as good as their record or their standing indicates. I think they're fallible. I think they're a good football team. They might even be a very good football team, but they're beatable. And I actually think Tennessee is a better team. I like Tennessee. I think, their physicality, I think it works perfectly against a team like the Packers. And this is key. The Packers have only played 3 games all season against winning teams. 3. And they're 1-2 in those 3 games. Tennessee is 3-3 straight up versus winning teams. The money line is plus 160. Tennessee needs the game a lot more than the Packers do. There's a chance Tennessee might not make the playoffs if they don't win their next 2 games. So this is a big game for Tennessee. I like Tennessee a lot at plus 160 on the money line.
Yeah, they're on a sizzling run right now, is Tennessee, putting up a lot of points on the scoreboard. They've scored 30 or more in each of their last 5 games in a row. And I'm going to only say to that, teams don't usually live too longer after doing just that. But the point about the Green Bay Packers is one we called out here about 3 or 4 weeks ago as we headed into December, when we called out the fact that they hadn't beat a winning team heading into December. So, they're vulnerable. There's no question about that. And I think that could be exposed, especially come the playoffs, come playoff time. The thing that concerns me a little bit here in this football game about Tennessee, aside from scoring all these points in ukus and by the bucketful, is the fact that in their penultimate game of the season, they are 1-9-1 against the spread. Green Bay, in their second to last game of the season, is 24-10-1 against the spread. Those two numbers clash and collide into one another here. I'm not a big Green Bay Packer fan like you, and I'm not a fan of laying these kind of points into a hot football team. I won't do it. I'll pass the game and watch it. But I'm a little bit concerned about those two numbers that I just shared with you and the fact that Tennessee has scored 30 or more 5 games in a row.
All right. I tell you what, I'm going to, how about this? I'll look at it this way. And I know this is like completely different, but if I like Tennessee and I want to like manipulate the trend, this is fun. Let me manipulate the trend. The Tennessee Titans have won their last 3 games of each season in the, what is it? What is the word? The penultimate?
Penultimate, second to last. Yes.
Game of their season. Okay, so we're going to take out regular season. And again, I'm manipulating the trend. So I'm going, last year, their second to last game of their season, they beat Baltimore in the playoffs. Then in 2018, they beat Washington in week 16. And then in 2017, they beat the Chiefs in their first playoff game. So I've just manipulated the trend to make it look good for me.
And you'll get a big fat X on that manipulation, okay?
Yeah, that's like when you hand in like your the teacher gives the addresses the class and gives the students the lesson, and then the student comes back and he writes his his written report, and the teacher puts a big fat F and circles it and goes, "Nice try."
Yeah, well, that was a nice try because they do not ever know when they're playing their playoff game if that's going to be their last playoff game. But nice try.
All right. So playbook.com is the place you want to be right now with the college football bowl season, with great teams like South Carolina. Oh, that's right. They decided not to play because of COVID. But no, we got playoff games coming up next week. So that should be pretty awesome in college football. And it's going to be a lot of fun, and I'm sure you guys have got that covered. And then after football and we turn the corner into 2021, college basketball will take over.
Yeah, we'll get into basketball once the bowl season's over, Greg, and I just want to remind listeners and viewers out there that if you're serious about the bowl games, check out the Midweek Alert Special Edition Bowl Report, available this Thursday and next Thursday. All the information you'll need just in time for the bowl games at playbook.com.
Mark, appreciate it as always. We'll wrap up the regular season on next week's show. And then after that, it's off to the playoffs. So we'll have our playoff preview show. We'll take a look back also at our picks in the beginning of the season to see how they've done, including futures and wins and losses and all that kind of stuff. So I'm looking forward to doing that in a couple of weeks. But one more week to go before the playoffs begin, Mark. Looking forward to doing that with you next week. And Merry Christmas also. And I know that I hear that the weather is cooling off for you at the perfect time. It's Christmassy weather down in South Florida. It's getting into the 40s.
Well, it'll be in the 40s come Christmas Day.
Good for you.
At night, but yeah, at night, in the day maybe about 60. But a little bit better than it is in my hometown in Cleveland, where they're expecting 8 inches of snow.
Oh, 8 inches. It's good that they don't have a game.
Yes.
All right. Excellent job as always, Mark. We'll talk to you next week.
Merry Christmas, Greg. Enjoy the holidays. I'll catch you next week.